All right, welcome. Today, we're going to jump right in and take our very first steps with Python. My goal here is pretty simple, to take you from being just curious about code to being someone who has actually written their very first program. Sound good? Let's do it. So, here's our game plan. First, we'll use Python just like a really smart calculator. Then, we'll get into working with text, or what programmers call strings. After that, we'll see how to organize data using lists. We'll then hit on a really important idea, the difference between changeable and unchangeable things. And to wrap it all up, you're going to break down your first real program. Let's get started. Okay, first up, let's see how you can use Python as a super-powered calculator, doing everything from basic math to actually storing values. I mean, think about it for a second. What if your calculator was, well, smarter? What if it could not only crunch the numbers, but also remember them for you? That's exactly what Python lets you do right out of the box. Check this out. You can just type a math problem straight into Python, just like you would on paper. It already knows the order of operations, PEMDAS from school, so it'll do the multiplication before the subtraction, handle the parentheses first, all of it. You hit enter, and bam, you get the right answer. And yeah, it's got all the basics you'd expect, plus for addition, minus for subtraction, the little star for multiplication, and a slash for division. But here's a cool one, the double asterisk. That's for exponents, or powers. So if you want to calculate 5 squared, you just type 5 star star 2. Pretty neat, huh? Now this is where things get really cool. This is where Python stops being just a calculator and starts being a programming language. You can actually give names to your numbers. We call these variables. So we can say width equals 20. Now, Python remembers that width stands for 20. Then we can just use the words in our math. What's width times height? It knows the answer is 900. You're storing information. All right, we've covered numbers. Now let's switch gears and talk about text. In Python, we have a special name for any piece of text. We call it a string. So what is a string? Honestly, it's just any sequence of characters, a word, a sentence, you name it. The only real rule is that you have to wrap your text in quotes. You can use single quotes or double quotes. Python doesn't care, as long as you match them up. Now here's where it gets powerful. You can pull out individual letters from a string using their position, or what we call an index. And here is your first big welcome to programming moment. We almost always start counting from 0. So the first character is at index 0. Python also has this awesome trick where you can use negative numbers to count from the back of the string. So -1 is always the last character. This little table makes it super clear. For the word Python, you can see the positive index starts at 0 for P, and the negative index starts at -1 for the very last letter N. It's like each number is just a pointer to a specific character. So what if you want more than just one letter? What if you want a whole chunk? For that, we can slice the string. You just give it a start index and an end index with a colon in the middle. Now, here's the one tricky part you have to remember. It grabs everything up to, but not including, that end index. So word from 0 to 2 gets you the characters at position 0 and 1, and then it stops. Okay, so we can handle numbers and single pieces of text. But what if you want to group a bunch of items together? For that, Python gives us something called a list. And a list is, well, it's pretty much what it sounds like. It's a container that holds a collection of items in a specific order, kind of like a shopping list. To make one in Python, you just use squared brackets and separate your items with commas. It can hold numbers, text, whatever you want. And here is the absolute best part. Everything we just learned about indexing and slicing strings, it works the exact same way for lists. No new rules to learn. You can grab the first item with index 0, you can slice out a range of items. It's the same system. How great is that? So far, lists and strings seem pretty similar, but now we're going to talk about the one huge critical difference between them. And it all comes down to this: can you change them or not? Here it is. Lists are what we call mutable. It's a fancy word, but it just means changeable. If you spot a mistake in your list, like that 65 should be 64, you can just target that specific spot and replace it. No problem. But strings are immutable. They cannot be changed. Once a string is created, it's set in stone. If you try to change the P in Python to a J, Python will actually give you an error and say, nope, can't do that. So here's a really easy way to remember this. Just think of a list like it's written on a whiteboard. You can grab an eraser, wipe an item off, and write something new. It's flexible. A string, on the other hand, is like a word that's been carved into a stone tablet. You can't just edit one letter, right? You'd have to get a whole new stone and carve a whole new word. Okay, believe it or not, you now have all the building blocks you need to understand your first real program. And we're going to do it by generating a pretty famous mathematical sequence. Take a look at this. This little piece of code prints out the Fibonacci sequence. Now, don't panic if that looks a little like a foreign language. I promise it is way simpler than it looks, and we're going to walk through it together, line by line. Okay, let's pretend we're the computer here. First line, setup. We create two variables, a and b, and set them to 0 and 1. Next, the condition. The while loop asks a question. Is a less than 10? Right now, a is 0, so yep, that's true. So we do the action inside the loop. We print a. We see a 0 on our screen. Now the clever part, the update. That line, ab equals b, comma a plus b, just means the new a becomes the old b, which was 1, and the new b becomes the old a plus the old b, which is 0 plus 1. So now, a is 1 and b is 1. We go back to the top of the loop and ask the question again. And we just keep doing that until a is no longer less than 10. And just like that, you've done it. You just walked through and understood the logic of a complete program. Think about that. In just a few minutes, you went from basic math to this. That is a fantastic start. So the only real question left is, what will you build next?